You found the Backup Wrap-Up, your go-to podcast for all things backup, recovery, and cyber recovery. Today I've got another popular classic episode that you probably haven't heard. Prasanna and I talked to Melissa Palmer, aka VMware, a ransomware resiliency architect, about why virtualization environments are such juicy targets for ransomware attackers, how they're specifically going after vCenter and ESXi hosts, and why your backup strategy is probably missing some critical components if you're trying to protect from that. If you've got VMware, you can't afford to miss our episode with VMware. See what I did there? By the way, if you don't know who I am, I'm W. Curtis Preston, aka Mr. Backup, and I've been passionate about backup and recovery for over 30 years, ever since I had to tell my boss that we had no backups of the production database that we had just lost. I didn't want that to happen to me again. I don't want it to happen to you, and that's why I do this. On this podcast, we turn unappreciated backup admins into cyber recovery heroes. This is the Backup Wrap-Up. Welcome to the show. Hi, welcome to the Backup Wrap-Up. I'm your host, W. Curtis Preston, aka Mr. Backup, and I have with me one of only 3 people who actually know and recognized my actual birthday today, Prasanna Malaiyandi. How's it going, Prasanna?
Good, Curtis. How are you doing? Happy birthday.
Why is my birthday so complicated? Why do I make it complicated?
You make it complicated. Exactly.
I do. But why do I do that? I do it for a reason. Privacy, yeah. So my Facebook, LinkedIn, etc. birthday was yesterday, and then my actual birthday is today. So anybody,
you know how I figured that out?
What's that?
Because I saw on Facebook it was your birthday, and the following day I totally forgot and I wished you happy birthday, and that's when you told me, you're like, and you're like, oh no, it's
so
actually today's my birthday.
You got it wrong, but you got it right. By getting it wrong, you got it right, or by being delayed.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's kind of funny. Sometimes I tell people, like when they wish me, happy birthday on Facebook, I'm like, yeah, thanks, whatever. But if it's like work people, I'm like, hey, just so you know, I actually do this for a reason, like it's privacy, and your birthday is only one of like 2 in the US, only one of 2 pieces of private information that are needed to impersonate you. So, the one is, so the other one is social security number, which you don't typically put that out there. But
so are you sure you want to be recording this on the podcast and leaving it in saying,
if a hacker is willing to actually follow me on the podcast,
get a listen in.
Yeah. Anyway, we should get on to the business at hand. Our guest is known for her insightful virtualization comments on Twitter, so I was very excited to see her now focusing on public enemy number 1, ransomware. She's been in the industry over 15 years and is an independent technology analyst and ransomware resiliency architect. You can follow her at vmis.net. Welcome to the podcast, Melissa Palmer, aka VMware.
Hello, gentlemen. Thank you so much for having me.
How's it going? It's funny. I knew you and followed you for a long time and didn't know you had another name.
I'm same thing as well. I've seen like all your tweets and everything else, but I'm like, I didn't know your actual name either. I was like, who is this Melissa Palmer person responding to emails?
And I get that a lot, actually. People don't know we're the same person.
Yeah. We've had a person on the podcast that they continued to go by their Reddit handle, Snorkel42. It's like such a random name, But yeah, he wasn't hiding or anything. He just preferred to go by Snorkel42. So I'm glad to actually know and be able to use your first name. So I'm very excited. I am curious. So what made you sort of make that jump, right? You were doing, now I see that you had background in backup, good for you,
Yeah.
Having worked at Veeam. But you've been spending so much time with virtualization lately. What made you sort of jump over to ransomware?
So it's kind of funny how things work out sometimes. I have always been, I would say, security minded.
Mm-hmm.
As long as I can remember. I might have been at DEF CON when I was 16 years old. Anyway, so it's
Really?
kind of a thing.
Is that true?
Yeah, really.
Is that true?
It's kind of a thing that has always been throughout my education. My master's is in secure design. Throughout my career, I've been bringing it in dribs and drabs. But as ransomware started to pick up and I was really putting a big focus on disaster recovery and recovery in general from at the Veeam perspective, a couple of years ago, I kind of said, you know what, I think I really want to pivot hard and focus on this because I just find it so interesting, like all aspects of it. And I've learned a lot and I've helped people fix a lot of things they had going very wrong in their environment. So hopefully they do not feel the impact of ransomware. So like I said, I've had the security minded thing throughout my whole career. And it just kind of got to the point where it's like, I'm going to go further down this path now.
And I think we need more people like that because there's so much ransomware out there, right? There's so many issues. And I think everyone's trying to figure out, okay, what are sort of those best practices? What are the things we should be doing to sort of help protect ourselves from some of this? So I'm glad at least there's someone in addition trying to focus on this. So it helps.
Is ransomware really happening? I mean, is it really a thing?
I thought that was like 2020, isn't it?
So one of my favorite things is I just go to Google and I type in ransomware. And I just see what comes up. I was like, I think it's fun.
Yeah.
I have a warped idea of fun, as we've established. But like, I just go into Google and I type in ransomware, and it's funny the stuff that does make it to like the mainstream news, and you see all these like people on all the news channels that like. I don't know, sometimes you get someone and they're like the cybersecurity expert, but they're also like the dog walking expert and like the cat fighting expert. I'm like, how do you find these people? But you'll see a lot of this kind of stuff going mainstream. So the threat is out there. It's becoming more and more pervasive. I don't think we're going to see less of it because people have made a lot of money this way, right?
When you did your search though, right? What percentage do you think, or do you even think it's scratching the surface, like what you see publicly about these ransomware cases versus like what's actually happening?
No, I don't think people fess up unless they have to, right? Unless there's a reason. And that's actually a problem I had at Veeam working with the disaster recovery product. Like no one wanted to be a customer reference. Like I don't want to admit I had a disaster or a ransomware attack or something and I use this stuff to save my behind. Like I'm not admitting that. So that was actually a challenge, getting people to like publicly fess up and say, yeah, I got ransomware and everything went to hell, but we recovered. Don't worry.
Yeah. And by the way, that reminds me to throw out our usual disclaimer. I work for Druva. Persona worked for Zoom. And this is an independent podcast, not a podcast of either company. And the opinions that you hear are ours. And also, we'd love to have you join the conversation. Just reach out to me, wcurtispreston@gmail or at WCPreston on Twitter, as long as it's up. And for now, and also please rate us. Just scroll down to your, most of you, based on the stats I'm seeing, most of you are on Apple Podcasts. Just scroll down to the bottom there and give us some stars, give us some comments. We love comments. You can tell us how much. For those of you that are watching it on video, which you can see at backupcentral.com,
I didn't realize. I thought you guys told me the video was going to be like like outtakes stuff. I've been sitting here making funny faces the whole time. Like, as we got started, because I thought you were.
This
just
may be
use,
the best. Clips. This may be the best recording ever. You can comment on how much you like. Personas. Are we at a tweered yet? You will tell me when you get to a tweered, right?
I think it's a. It's a theored, right?
Theored, a theored. Yeah, you're at a tweered, but you're not at a theored. When is the theored?
2 months.
Really?
Yep.
So that would be, if you don't follow Melissa, he hasn't shaved or cut his hair since COVID. So he is at almost at a 3-year beard, otherwise known as a.
I cannot relate to that. I'm sorry.
It was initially supposed to be a year, which is a year-long beard, and just kept going. So
it's interesting. It's been getting grayer lately.
It is getting grayer. I know. It's the
what's
stress, Curtis. The stress
in the Maliandi household.
Yeah,
you're getting too stressed by ransomware. Yeah. So anyway, yeah, I agree with you of how much it's gotten out into the the general. What do we call that? Like the general mindset?
I don't know, the
Like,
regular people. Like, I don't know.
Yeah,
like,
the regular people.
The normies.
I see it a lot on TV. I'm seeing it in TV shows, right? I don't know if you've seen
Undeclared War.
The Undeclared War is a great show. Have you seen that, Melissa?
No.
So it's, I don't remember where I saw it. Did I see it on Peacock? Thank you.
Yep.
So it's actually a BBC show. And it's set in so try to sort of see how crazy this idea seems. So the bad guy in the bad country in the show is Russia, and the good guy in the show is England and us basically, but England is the target, and Russia in the show is using a variety of cyber attacks and misinformation attacks to try.
Stop. This is real. Like, this is fake. Like,
this is a drama. It's a series. It's a series. And to try and get England to actually declare a war. They're using this undeclared war to get England to actually declare a war. And it was pretty good. They got a lot of the tech in there, and I even learned a few things. So like I learned
3
about
words.
What 3 words? Have you heard of what 3 words?
no.
So there's a group that has taken every 3-meter segment in the world, right? 3-meter squared segment in the world, and has assigned 3 words to it. So that you can say, you can go to what3words.com. You can enter.
This is so cool.
You can enter your address, and like your house will have multiple 3-word segments, right? Now it has 2 purposes. One is meeting somebody at Coachella, right? I'm at Squirrel Pizza, Tree, and they can put that into. It's much easier than saying I'm at 153 negative 1,
right.
Right? And then they can find you. But also in a lot of the undeveloped world, there's a lot of people that don't have addresses, and this allows them to have an address, right? And they can buy things on Amazon and have stuff delivered to their house using what 3 words. Anyway, I learned it from that show. I really don't know how we got onto this, but anyway, the point was that it's out there, and even. Is it there's the doctor that has Asperger's? Is that the Good Doctor?
Oh, the Good Doctor.
Yeah, they had a ransomware attack, took down the hospital.
Grey's Anatomy had a ransomware episode.
Did Grey's Anatomy have a ransomware episode? I used to be a really big Grey's Anatomy
fan, but then the whole Derek thing happened, and I don't know how I feel about it. And I'm still struggling with that years later. But yes, Grey's Anatomy had a ransomware episode, and I remember sitting and watching it just like hysterical through the whole thing. I was like, I didn't even have words for it. I'm like, my favorite TV show has ransomware on it. My life is complete. Like,
I get excited when shows have backup in it. And my wife showed me a show just yesterday. Darn it, I can't remember what it was, but backup. Oh, I remember I don't remember the show, but there was in the show, this woman got interrupted because her, I'm guessing, teenage son called her and saying, hey, my laptop is messed up. I can't get in my laptop or something. And so he needs the data. And she's like, you should have backed it up like I told you to. And then she hung up on him. And I was like,
there was a show, and this had to be years ago. And I don't remember which show. I'm going to have to go figure it out afterwards, where like the ESXi shell was like in like,
oh really?
And I remember losing my mind. I remember the guy, and it was really hot, but that's all I remember. Like, I'm going to have to figure this out afterwards.
That's funny, because normally when you see the stuff like this in TV, it's not an actual VSXi shell, right? It's some total random thing, and it's complete nonsense. Here's a question, Prasanna: have you seen any ransomware attacks in Bollywood?
I don't think I have yet.
Oh,
Yeah.
please,
No.
go find me
Yeah.
one. I love Bollywood
You know what we
movies.
need?
It's
You know what we
a
need?
pleasure of mine.
We need a musical, a ransomware.
Please.
You're
Oh,
right.
can we please?
Ransomware attack
Can I
music.
do
Oh,
this?
my
Like,
God.
I've thought about this. I literally have thought about this. I used to do a lot of musical theater in college and stuff like that. Like, I would be so into a ransomware musical. Like, it's amazing.
Yeah, this could be it.
That
This
could be
your-
awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, send some
could-
notes.
I might have come up with some alternate Taylor Swift lyrics about ransomware at one point. I'm just saying.
Are you guys
So-
going to get into a battle now?
So
A lyric battle?
yeah. So Melissa, I've actually produced a handful of parody music videos that have to do
No,
with
really?
backup. Yeah, and one
You
about
need to send me some. I
virtualization.
need to see these. I need to see these.
I'll give you a quick sample. Walk into the lab. Have you seen my VM server? I'm so pumped about getting VMs in my server. Guests on my big disk. It's so damn freaky. People are like, man, that's downright sneaky. Strolling into server rooms. VMs have some mass appeal. Moving all the guests, even databases time for real. Putting in some Hyper-V. Microsoft said it's free. Should have done it sooner. Think my boss would agree.
That's good.
The chorus is, I'm going to build VMs. Got at least 20 guests in my server. I'm virtual, getting rid of servers. VMs are so. It's what was the original song? What's that song? We're
gonna go pop some Macklemore.
Macklemore. Yeah, I'm gonna pop some tags. Yeah. Anyway, it is
$20 in
available
my
on.
pocket,
It is available on YouTube. I'll throw a link for those of you that are.
I've been
curious enough to see
rewriting
this
Taylor
ridiculous-
Swift songs lately on a regular basis just because I don't know why I do this, but I do. And I used to do demos. That was my sign of doing a demo. Like, am I ready to cold do this on stage or something? Can I sing Taylor Swift while I do the demo? Like, just sing my thing, click through all my stuff, whatever. And that was like my sign of like, you can't get me on this. No matter what happens, I'm good to go. Like, I can just sing a Taylor Swift song while doing the demo.
That's okay. I just have to tell you a random. This is several years ago when I was underemployed, I started doing Uber, right? And then it just turned out I liked it. So I do it when I'm bored. Like I go out and do Uber, right? And and also I'm an extrovert stuck at home. So it's my outlet. But one night I picked up this couple and the woman had just broken up with her best friend of like many years over a guy, right? And she gets in her car, she gets in my car and she is inconsolable. Like she's just bawling, like just ridiculously over the top, bawling her eyes out. And then she goes, she touches me on the shoulder and she goes, Can you play some Taylor Swift? Can you play some Taylor Swift? Any Taylor Swift song? And just go, and I was just like, oh my God. And then I just said, hey, hey Siri, play Taylor Swift on Spotify. Stop it. Nope. I don't want it. Sorry. It started doing it. And it picked a breakup song.
Aww.
Which of course all of them are, right?
Yeah,
and so it didn't help. Anyway. So we were talking about ransomware.
Yeah.
It's become
We were.
aware in the general public now.
Yeah,
right?
because
As we've talked about.
it is so huge, right?
Yeah. And the
Yeah.
impact too, right? It's no longer, hey, it's just this back end company that gets impacted, right? It's like hospitals, schools, right? Every company, every
Everything.
organization is at risk.
Yeah. So what do you think? Looking out there from a security, I know from a backup perspective. What do you think from a security perspective? What do you think are the things that most people get wrong when
They don't have their stuff backed up. Can we start with that?
Okay.
Like, can we just start there? Because like, there's this weird cross pollination between backup and security at this point.
There
right?
is. By the way,
if
we
you
used to
don't
be
have
enemies.
it backed up. We used to, right?
We used to be enemies, but we're over that. Yeah.
It's ridiculous. Like, if you don't have your stuff backed up, how do you think you're ever going to recover it? And the amount of people that don't have their stuff backed up still, or don't have everything backed up, is still astounding.
When you do you run into, you don't run into corporate people that don't have their stuff backed up, do you? Oh,
Yeah.
It hurts me.
Yeah.
It hurts me.
It hurts. Or they don't have everything backed up. Like, well, this was too expensive to back up before, so we weren't backing it up. I'm like, well, how expensive is it if it's gone?
Yeah, or someone just spun up something, right? Your shadow IT use cases, right? And they're like, hey, corporate IT didn't know about this, and so no backups were done.
Yeah. Okay. I can. Yeah. I think the second part, that you said, Melissa, like they missed something that I think.
Like, I can't tell you how many times, like, working for a backup vendor, they would be like, well, it's too expensive to back up this over here because it's only test dev, so we don't back it up. I'm like, okay, it's test dev. That's where you're doing all your active development. You're not backing it up. So what happens if that goes away? And they're like, but it's not production. I'm like, it's not production until something happens. And then you realize it's production.
Yeah.
Stuff like that. I think that was a common thing.
My favorite test dev story, and this is an old story. By the way, this month I'll have been in the industry 30 years, Melissa. And so this is like 28 years ago. We had a developer group came to me and said, we need to restore this directory tree. And they handed me a directory tree that started with /TMP, right? And I said, we don't back up temp. Like, it's well documented. We don't back up temp. We don't back up, temp, right? And this was an HP server, which I don't know what they do these days, but temp was in RAM. And so what happened was they rebooted, and what went away was a directory, a source code tree that was like 15 developers storing their source code tree in temp, and for like months. And they're like, you don't understand. This is really important. I'm like, you don't understand.
Well,
you were storing your source code in RAM.
You know that song that Beyonce that like made really popular? If you like it, then you should have put a ring on it.
Yeah.
If you like it, then you should have backed it up. Very simple.
Yeah, I do see, and Prasanna, you've run into it as well, right? Like people not backing up, either not having backups, or the last episode we talked about, a company that had a homegrown backups.
Yep.
Right.
Or not even backing up everything required for that application. Right. It's like, hey, I forgot.
Application dependency mapping is the worst part of all this stuff.
Yeah.
Let's be honest here.
Yeah, that's why going all the way back. That's why I've always just been a fan of back up all the things, right? Back up all the servers and all the directories. I know it costs more money, but what else costs money is
how much will a ransomware attack cost you these days? Cha-ching,
exactly.
There's your justification. Right? Here's your budget. Go protect your stuff now. Finally, please.
Exactly.
One question I have, I know we'll get to it probably at some point, but with virtualization, does it make it easier to sort of figure out like everything that's needed?
It depends, of course, because everything in IT depends. If everything's hosted in the virtualization environment, then yeah, it's simple. But when you get into crazy stuff like, well, this database is on the Oracle rack cluster over there, and that's not virtualized because Oracle and virtualization, we're not even going to go there. Yeah. That's when you get a little dicey with stuff like that. Or, especially with hybrid cloud now too. If you have an app that spans like on-prem and the cloud, then like, good luck, guys. I hope you actually know what you're doing.
But would you say, though, in the virtualized environment that for those applications which are fully virtualized...
I love this question.
We're
going to go down a dark path after this.
It makes it a little easier where maybe it doesn't cover, like you said, 100% of your environment, but it covers some good chunk of your environment. And you have a general solution, and the rest of it you can focus on.
Let's go with that. If you're an organization that's 100% virtualized, which... if you're a company that was started in the last 10 to 20 years, you probably are, right? Yeah, just back up the whole virtualization environment and you're good to go. But you know what else that means? That's a really big, juicy target for the ransomware actors. They can come in, come through your virtualization environment, and ransomware you 100 times faster and 100 times worse if they get ESXi or vCenter. Yay!
Right. So I think that's one thing that isn't talked about a lot. Is
it's not, and it drives me up a wall.
You brought up an interesting topic there, and I don't think it's one that's discussed enough, and that is that virtualization environments like vCenter are being targeted as a thing. Right? They're not just targeting the VMs; they're targeting vCenter.
They're going after the VMware infrastructure itself, not just the VMs. I mean, any Windows server you pop these days is probably a VM, right? If it's on-prem. No. They're going after vCenter, which is the management interface, and the ESXi host. They are going after the VMware environment as a whole.
Yeah, and that sort of hurts, right? Because like you said,
they go after the backup environments too.
Yeah, because yes. No, we talk about that a lot on this podcast. And it, and I know this reaches out to your former employer, but backup environments that are exclusively Windows based bug me.
Scare you?
Right. Right. Because I am worried about that, right?
Because Windows is just like the most secure thing ever. Like, how many vulnerabilities out there target Windows? Like,
no one targets Windows. No ransomware. No one has Windows laptops that they then they get infected and then they bring it into the data center.
Never.
As you're talking about VMware, does sort of this ransomware angle also affect like the VMware cloud offerings as well in your mind? Or do you think it's more about the on-prem customer deployed implementation?
I would say if I was, so I you've heard the whole red versus blue team thing, right? So I would say I'm usually like a blue team or a defender, recover, all that kind of stuff. But I got like, when it comes to VMware, like a little bit of red team in me. I got to be honest, got some red team in there. It kind of comes down to level of effort, right? Yeah. If you've deployed VMware Cloud the right way, it's probably harder to get into than your traditional on-prem infrastructure if you've done everything right. If everybody can log into my cloud vCenter anyway and I put it on the internet, then it's a target, right? Like that kind of thing. But I would say I've seen a lot of the easier targets are still the on-prem kind of stuff. So that's where people go first. But I think that everything is a target. There's kind of a misnomer that the cloud is more secure, right? It's not. It's sometimes a little harder. So why there's enough low-hanging fruit in data centers, why not start there?
Yeah. Why go after that harder target?
Yeah.
Do you want to, for those that don't know what a red and blue team are, you want to fill that in?
Yeah, I will. So if you think about it in two different ways, red team is more like offense. Like I'm the person penetration testing and actively trying to break stuff and trying to figure out where the weaknesses are. And the blue team is really defense. I'm the defender. I'm trying to make sure the red teamers can't break everything because I'm trying to secure it. And I really feel that backup and recovery does also fall under the blue team too, right? Like if everything does go to hell and we are ransomware, we're putting everything in place now so we can recover later.
Yeah, I actually know a guy that is a physical pen tester.
Ooh, that sounds fun.
Yeah, his job is to physically, he doesn't break in. He uses
he gets someone to let him in the door.
Social engineering, and then his job is to get to somewhere where he's not supposed to be and take a picture, and then get the hell out.
But that's very valid, right?
Yeah,
there's all different layers and levels of security. That actually sounds fun. I think I'd be good at something like that. I know you can't tell how tall I am, but I'm like 5 feet tall. I'm like, like nothing. So I'm like a tiny little unsuspecting, put a big smile on my face, put some pink on. Like I could probably get it anywhere.
Yeah, I think a female physical pen tester would be a force to be reckoned with. I think,
new career opportunity, Melissa.
I'm just play the little innocent. I'm not doing anything.
I'm lost.
I'm lost. Play on all our biases. That would be mean, but very effective. So we talked about, backing up everything. We talked about the fact that vCenter is a target. So you need to learn, and I'm, Hyper-V is a target. Linux is a target as well. Like everything's a target, right? Stop
everything
thinking,
is a target.
Yeah.
But here's the thing that people don't do. And like I said, I'm generally a blue teamer, but I got some red team in me when it comes to VMware. And I'm kind of thinking, okay, I'm like a ransomware person. What do I want? I want to make money. I want to make you pay the ransom, which means I'm going to do as much damage as quickly as possible before you figure out I'm in there.
Right.
VMware I'm kind of like torn right now. I don't know what's a better target, VMware or your backups. Probably both if you get 2 people in there, right? Hit them at the same time. That way you can't recover and everything's gone. But I'm just looking for a high impact way to wreak havoc. Hit the VMware environment. That's going to be fast. I do nerdy stuff like read ransomware release notes, and I can't remember which strain it was, but they're like, oh, we redid something and now we encrypt, much faster. We use more CPU threads, right? So you've got this big, massive vSphere host sitting there with all these CPUs in it. Once you power everything down so you can encrypt it, boom, it's going to go so fast. You're probably not even going to notice before everything is encrypted.
And this encryption, does that happen at the vCenter level, or is it literally
So
you pop each VM one by one?
No, you don't even have to do that. This is cake. Let me explain how this works. So a VMware cluster is usually a bunch of physical servers in a cluster. We need shared resources so that these VMs can move around the cluster based on load balancing, and if something fails, restart it, all that kind of stuff. So the shared resources are basically network and storage, which means if I have 8 nodes in my cluster, let's just use that number, that one host is connected to all the data stores and they all see the same thing, right? So if I get into one host, I can see all of the storage for the whole cluster. Now, when we get to the storage level or the data store level in VMware, a VM is just a file. Yeah. It's a file they're encrypting. It's at the file level, right? They just encrypt all the files on the data store pretty much. It's not like I have to go VM by VM. They're just files at that point, which is why it happens so quick and why it's so dangerous. Yeah.
And unlike your traditional file system, right? These data store files are pretty large in size, right? So
yeah.
Regarding the, or go, go after vCenter or go after backup. The big concern that I have, not just because generally what, if they're going after the backup system, historically, it's been to just take it out of the equation because they're going to do damage somewhere else and they don't want the backup system used to recover. You can pretty easily get at least a doomsday copy. Like if you're doing an on-prem system, most of them have the ability to get something in the cloud.
Exactly.
You can deal with that.
I mean, hopefully people have half a brainer and putting a copy of their backup data in the cloud, like just by default, right? Like hopefully.
The concern I have is some of the encryption methods used by some of the backup vendors aren't that great, and that they can also use basically the backup. So, you talked about how do I get paid the most if I'm a ransomware attacker?
Yeah, exactly.
If you can figure out the encryption method used by the backup server, now not only do you have, you have unencrypted copies of everything, right? And then you can do an extortion attack, right? You can say, hey,
I love it.
I love all the emails.
A good cup of extortion in the morning. Come on. That's how you that's how you get people to pay too, right? Oh, I found pictures of your CEO doing a little something.
Double whammy.
Wow, you go right for the jugular.
I do. I don't mess around.
I was just thinking the CEO is, because the thing is, you show me an email system and I'll show you emails that shouldn't have been sent. Right.
Exactly. Let's go with that. It's a little more tamer.
Emails that I've known, and like even in places where I've been in the corporate world for 30 years now, and it's changed over the years when we talk about things like sexual harassment, right? It has changed, right? But like what a lot of it has done is it's just gone closeted. Right. It's like, so guys still talk amongst each other, but they still do it on email. Right. And you're like,
I've got some stories about that.
Oh, I am absolutely sure.
I got stories.
I am sure you do. But that's what, if I were a hacker, I would be going after the backups, and I would be going after backups specifically where I could figure out the encryption mechanism, and that I can, maybe I can't decrypt the data directly, but what I can do is I can get administrative access to the backup server, and then I can restore whatever I want, wherever I want. And a lot of people aren't watching their backup system.
One. No, they're not.
Right.
That's a good one.
Not like they should be, because let me ask you this. So you've dealt with a lot of backup folk.
I have.
It's still this thing of like nobody wants to do it, right? And so it's the junior person.
I will say one of my specializations when I worked with backup was also monitoring the backup systems, and I was telling everybody, realize you need to be monitoring these too for like a number of reasons, especially like if you're ransomware and you go to restore and you realize your backups weren't running, like that's a big one too.
Yeah.
But kind of looking at like, hey, like why is Bob from accounting restoring a VM at 3 a.m.? Like Bob from accounting shouldn't be doing that. Like what is going on here? Well, someone got his credentials and he had access to the backup server. Hello.
Yeah. Least privilege. Right?
Yeah, one of my favorites. That is probably like my number one I talk to people about. Like, let's start there, please.
Yeah.
Especially when it comes to VMware, right? Like, Bob, I like Bob. I'm going to pick on Bob from accounting now. Like, Bob from accounting shouldn't be able to log into vCenter. I'm just putting that out there.
Yeah.
Just saying.
I know. Bob from accounting's an idiot.
Are there other things you would recommend sort of as like best practices to sort of reducing the risk of ransomware in a vCenter environment?
Don't put vCenter on the internet. If you go to Shodan, it's all over the place. People still do this. People put their ESXi hosts on the internet too. Do not do this, please. And I know, but Melissa, there's valid reasons that we would do this. And if you do it in a protected manner and blah, 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 and you think it's safe, well, whatever, nothing's safe these days. Fine, fight me on it. But like, let's start there. Let's start with the basics. That's important. Principal least privilege is a big thing. Having a good, strong ESXi root password is a good thing. Not having it written on or in a file on your desktop. What was it? So I follow a lot of this stuff, and I can't remember. Oh, it was some big hack, and I can't remember which one right now. But it was really going around Twitter, and like someone found the password file that was on someone's desktop, and whoever posted on Twitter, it was all redacted with the passwords out. But they had every password to all of the infrastructure in a notepad file. Oh. So someone got into someone's desktop, because that's what a lot of it happens. They get access to your desktop or your PC or whatever. They found it, and guess what? Now I have the root password for ESXi. I have the keys to the whole kingdom. Like, don't do stuff like that.
The thing is, these things sound so stupid, but that, like so many of the hacks that happen, ransomware and otherwise, they're because of really stupid stuff, like not installing
human
a
error
patch, right? Not installing a patch, having your root passwords up on a thing, or
even saved in a browser, right? Your password.
Don't do that,
please. So it's like these seem like really basic things. But if everybody in the world did these really basic things, there would be a significantly smaller amount of ransomware, I think, in the world.
But I have a question about that, though. I agree with everything you guys have said, but if you got rid of all the low-hanging fruits, wouldn't everything else become much
that's the thing, right? Once we get through this and we get
it'll be the next level. Yeah.
That's the thing, right? So like these threat actors are out there doing this stuff day in and day out. Like it's like if I'm a threat actor, like I bet these gangs have like VMware specialists working for them at this point, that all they do is go in and pwn VMware. I'm sure they have a backup specialist that they know all the backup systems. They just go like, you have to understand that these threat actors are specialized, right? Of course there's generalists. You have the whole ransomware as a service thing where they just get in and they kind of hand it over to the threat actors and all that kind of stuff. So like all these people do is, and they're generally probably pretty smart people, is like, I'm just going to figure out every way I can just own VMware. And that's what they do day in and day out. Right. So it's hard to compete with that kind of stuff. And once we clear up the basics, yes, there's going to be another area to target. There's going to be something new to exploit. Those 0 days are going to come out and people aren't going to patch them. And everybody's watching it, right? Like I read all the CVEs and stuff like that. Like they're just sitting there going, "Oh, I can exploit this," and off to the races. Like it's a big thing. There's no silver bullet. There's no one size fits all. No. It's just
I know
mitigate the risk, right?
Yeah, that's why my approach when talking to people has been just assume that ransomware is going to get into your environment.
Assume breach. Thank you. Yeah. Let's just stop playing around. Assume breach. How do you recover? How do you stop them? How do you recover?
Yeah, and how do you limit the blast? Right? Yes. How do you, I know
how do you limit the amount of damage they can do and then recover?
And I know
that's where it has to move.
And a great, for those that are, if you're listening to this and you're on because you're a fan of VMIS, that's great. You should check out this other guy that we had on a podcast. We went pretty deep into this, Snorkel 42. I'll put a link in the show notes. So he went into things like, what do you call it?
Is that a 42U rack reference? Like,
what?
how did he come up with 42? Is it
You know what?
42U rack?
I got
Or is
nothing.
it like, what's that book?
We
The
didn't
Universe,
ask.
whatever.
We didn't ask.
Oh, Hitchhiker's Guide
to the Universe.
Yeah, the
Answers
Hitchhiker's
42.
Guide. Yeah. Yeah.
He posts on Reddit all the time on the sysadmin forum. So
yeah, and you know, he talked a lot about limiting or stopping lateral movement within your company. Period, because it's the kind of thing where people don't. I've only been in literally one company in my entire career where lateral movement had been completely shut off. Right. And I only knew that was because backup was really, really hard. Like we had to
and
go
you
in
complained.
and I had there's a great story which I won't retell right now, but it ends up with me losing my
swearing stuff
at late at night. Because they did that. But that's the kind of thing you have to do. Look at it's like the concept of least privilege. Look at your network, figure out which servers need to talk to which servers, and make that happen and nothing else. But anything else that you're thinking about, Melissa?
Like, there's so much. There's so much. It's just like, it's a ridiculous amount of stuff, and it's little stuff, right? It's like leaving SSH on, making sure it's turned off by default. That's a good way to get in. Anybody who has access to vCenter, right? We got to lock them down.
How about RDP?
Well, the good news is vCenter is a Linux-based appliance now.
Right.
So you can't RDP to vCenter anymore, at least. If there's still some Windows vCenters around there, which they probably are.
Are there?
I shouldn't say that. See, I feel weird like saying all this stuff. Like, I hate going places and be like, well, here's how you break into VMware and really screw it up. I feel like I shouldn't be doing that, but I'm sure there's people out there that know how to do all that stuff. I think there's still some Windows vCenters hanging around. But the same thing with vCenter, right? Don't have SSH on there either. Turn off all the SSHs. It's really simple to do. But people like it's like a thing, right? Like, oh, it's easier to SSH and go do whatever I have to do, but you forget to turn it off afterwards. Yeah.
Right.
Stuff like that. VMware's actually been very good about, they have like a whole ransomware page where they list everything out that they suggest and stuff like that. And that's like a good reading starting point for anybody, but people just get like sloppy. And I get that. And I have found like it's weird. I have like two personalities, like which Melissa is going to show up. Is it VMware Melissa and infrastructure Melissa that's going to show up? Or is security Melissa going to show up? Are they going to show up together? Like, who knows, right? It's like I've got these two personalities. And I've noticed that there is not a lot of cross-pollination in this space, right? There's not a lot of VMware people doing security, and there's not a lot of security people that really understand VMware. And I've seen this gap for a very long time, and I'm like trying to bridge it with some of my blog posts and my content and stuff like that. So I'll be putting more effort into there. But you know, you really gotta the two teams really just need to work together.
That's interesting that you mentioned, like, security and virtualization teams not necessarily working
like
together.
I can tell you, every time I see a VMware ransomware article in the news, it is factually wrong. Like, I don't know where they're getting their information from, but it's like usually wrong most of the time. And I'm just like, people don't understand these things.
Wow.
I wonder if it's kind of like back in the day how backup and virtualization teams never talk to each other and everything was broken. Maybe if they need something like that. Yeah.
I remember those days, and I feel old saying that, but I do remember those days.
Do you remember what was it? VCB? You remember VCB?
Yeah.
I said that it stood for very crappy backup. That's what I said it stood for.
Yeah, I remember that.
That was
VMware backup problems.
1.0. So everything you just said about VMware, I would take and I would say exactly the same thing about backup teams, right? And they're often very junior.
So what happens when we have to get the VMware team, the backup team, and the security team in the same room? What is going to happen?
And network team. Don't forget that.
Let's get the network team too while we're at it.
Well, I mean, hopefully these attacks have become so common, right? You know, Druva did a survey, and half of the companies said that they had been hit with ransomware in the last 3 years, right?
Yep.
Hopefully things are because, you know, if I look at traditionally backup and DR, you could often say things like, well, if a meteor hits, or if the earthquake takes out, I live in San Diego, right? If the earthquake and suddenly Arizona becomes beach freight property. I'm going to be dead and I won't care. Right. And the odds of that are, right.
And that's the problem.
But you can't say that with
that's the
ransomware.
Problem with DR. And all the traditional DR, I like to say that ransomware is a disaster, right? Because your disaster recovery plan is a great place to start. But here's the thing. How many organizations didn't actually bother because we're going to accept the risk of the meteor strike because it's not going to happen.
Right.
Versus ransomware, which is so
ransomware's
much
going to happen. It's not it's when.
Yeah, I remember being in a meeting trying to work with a large company, defense contractor. And they were basically saying, yeah, if that happens, I will be dead and I won't care. That was literally his official position. Let's move on. Move on, he said.
But one question I have, so we're saying that ransomware is common, right? People are hit with it. Mm-hmm. But are there sort of best practices like, hey, here's what you should be doing, and not just in silos? Like the backup team has stuff that they talk about. The VMware, like you said, VMware published something on how to prevent it, but sort of looking holistically across all these organizations, security, networking, virtualization, backup teams, right? To come together as, hey, here's really what you guys should be talking about before letting each team sort of figure things out.
So here's the interesting thing. I think until the tail end of 2022, the number one way threat actors got in was through phishing attacks, right? Someone clicked a link in the email. That was the number one way. But I believe in the later half of the year, and you guys might know better, it switched to vulnerabilities, right? Vulnerabilities are now the number one way threat actors are getting in. So I think we really need to start with how are they getting in and starting there. And each piece, right, kind of starts with cleaning up their house. The VMware vulnerabilities, because there are VMware vulnerabilities. Like everybody likes to talk about hypervisor escapes. Like that's like the classic VMware hacking thing. Like, ha, 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 hypervisor escape. I'm going to be in a VM and I'm going to take over the host. Like it drives me up a wall. I'm like, that's all anybody ever thinks of when they think about virtualization and security is a hypervisor escape. And that does not matter. No one cares. That's not what's going to get you, right? So if we start with something like vulnerabilities, right? Everybody's got to clean their own house. Right? The VMware team, the network team, the storage team, the backup team, because backup software has vulnerabilities sometimes too. Like anything can be vulnerable. So let's look at the way that the threat actors are getting in and everybody clean up their house. And then let's all get together and talk about how we cleaned up our house and go from there.
Yeah. I think if we look at like all these teams, right, what they all have in common is let's get good passwords and a password management system, whatever you have. Let's make sure that patch management and patch installs is top of the priority, right? Get MFA, right? And
monitoring
and monitoring and also the concept of least privilege. How are you implementing these concepts in your environment, security team, backup team,
security team too, right? They don't get a free pass. It's not like I'm the security person, so I don't have to update my software. Like it doesn't work that way. Like you're the same as everybody else, right? Yeah,
because I think if you just put in like so many hacks are simply based on zero day vulnerabilities that came out 6 months ago that have been
and
no one patched, right? You look at what happened at Rackspace. The Rackspace, they're calling it a 0 day vulnerability, but it was actually fixed only because it was unknown prior to that. But it was actually fixed by the patch that came out a month before the attack. And
I think I remember, was it Exchange or something? I don't remember what, but I remember seeing this go around. It was some Microsofty thing. I don't know if it was like RDP or Exchange. RDP, ransomware deployment protocol.
I've never heard that before. I love that.
So it was something that it was like a lot of Windows-based ransomware going around, but it was the same thing. Like the vulnerability used was like 6 months old and no one had bothered to patch it. So
yeah.
So I know we talked about like each house cleaning up. I think though the other thing that these four groups need to coordinate with is when they do get hit by ransomware, though, what does their response look like? I feel that a lot of organizations
you just opened a can of worms, my friend.
I know a lot of organizations don't have that plan. In fact, Curtis, when we had Tony from Spectralogic on the call, right, talking through like what happened when Spectralogic got hit with ransomware, right? His big thing was like, I don't even know where to start, right? And luckily they had cyber insurance. They had just signed up for the month before, right? And so they had experts who would come in and sort of guide them through that. But a lot of these organizations, like, it's almost like you have to do that fire drill, right? Ahead of time and be like, hey,
you have it.
Like?
That's what you have to do. You have to practice.
Yeah, honestly.
DR test, ransomware recovery test.
I want us to do an entirely separate recording on that. Okay. I agree with you. We're already over our normal time. And I don't want to shortchange that topic. I think that topic is dead on, Prasanna. And I think Melissa should come back. What do you think, Melissa?
Yeah.
Absolutely. I'd love to come back.
All right. Well, I have a birthday lunch waiting for me.
You do.
I'm going to go do that. And Melissa, this has been great, exciting. And I love to hear, somebody talk about backup and security all at the same time. So.
I know, it's fun, right? There's like, how many of us are there out there? I don't think there's many of us. It's so nice to be able to have a conversation about it.
Yeah. And thanks again, Prasanna.
Anytime. Nice to meet you, Melissa, and looking forward to having you back on.
Absolutely.
All right. And thanks again to our listeners. We're nothing without you. The Backup Wrap-Up is written, recorded, and produced by me, W. Curtis Preston. If you need backup or DR consulting, content generation, or expert witness work, check out backupcentral.com. You can also find links for my O'Reilly books on the same website. Remember, this is an independent podcast, and any opinions that you hear are those of the speaker and not necessarily an employer. Thanks for listening.